Hello and welcome back to Exothermic Plays Games. I'm Exothermic and the date today is Thursday, May 23rd, 2024. I've been doing a countdown of my favorite video games of all time through each day of the year, and coming in at number 223 is Final Fantasy V. We're getting near the end of May, and the halfway point is the beginning of July, so that means Final Fantasy V has gotten fairly close to the top half of the list. More than any other game in the franchise, I think V was about learning from past mistakes and iterating on the successes. It was almost like they took Final Fantasy III, which I had ranked at number 253, and just tried to improve it in every way. Both games use the job system, have fairly goofy plot lines, and rely on the relatively formulaic method of progressing one crystal at a time, though they're not the only games to do that, of course. The plot of Final Fantasy V follows four strangers who are thrown together by circumstances that must be the work of fate. There's Lena, princess of the Kingdom of Tycoon, which has watched over the Wind Crystal for who knows how long. And then, when a meteor falls from the sky, an adventurer named Bartz rushes over to inspect the crash site and finds not only Lena, but an older man with amnesia named Galuf. All Galuf remembers is that he must seek out the Wind Crystal and that it's in grave danger. So the trio set out to check on it, and on their way they join up with a pirate captain named Ferris. Our party is set and they make it to the Wind Crystal only for it to shatter when they get there. It's at this point that the story really kicks off and Final Fantasy V's job system is introduced. Much like in Final Fantasy III, you can swap jobs at will over the course of the game, and they have separate levels that layer on special abilities and skills. There are many improvements, however, of the mainline single-player games, and that's an important distinction for later this year. I think Final Fantasy V has by far the best iteration of the job system. You start off with Freelancer, which like in 3 is kind of a jack-of-all-trades, though it does have some interesting late-game applications in 5. Once you get to the Wind Crystal, you gain access to 6 more jobs, and by the end of the game, there's 21 jobs, or 22 if you also count Freelancer, 8 of which are brand new in Final Fantasy V. Unlike in all of the previous games with the job system, none of them are just strict upgrades of previous ones, and instead all have their own unique strengths and weaknesses. For the starting jobs you gain from the Wind Crystal, there's Knight, Monk, Thief, Black Mage, White Mage, and for the first time ever, the greatest job in the entire franchise, Blue Mage. All of those other ones are pretty typical, and I'll talk about them a whole lot in other videos, so I'll just skip them. Blue Mage, however, is something truly special. Unlike the other mage jobs, where you learn spells from scrolls or merchants or whatever it happens to be in that game, Blue Mage learns spells from enemies. Different games in the franchise handle that aspect of Blue Mage a bit differently, but in 5, if anyone with the learn ability gets hit with a learnable spell, then the whole party will learn it for use at any time they have Blue Magic equipped. Once learned, you cast it just like any other spell in the game. Some spells are pretty typical, like Arrow, which in many other games actually is just a normal spell, not Blue Magic. But some of the spells get really out there, like Death level 5, which instant KOs anything that's level is evenly divisible by 5. It's wild. I mentioned equipping Blue Magic. In Final Fantasy V, you have access to a certain set of skills from whatever your current job is, but you also get to select one skill from any other job that character has leveled to equip. You have to master the skill first, so it's usually a weaker version of whatever that actual job can do for you at the time, but it allows you to very deeply customize your party. For example, after getting access to the things necessary for it, I've got Bartz firmly as a Blue Mage with Time Magic equipped. That lets him do decent physical damage with a wide variety of offense and support spells from his Blue Magic, and most notably is able to give my whole party haste, effectively doubling the amount of turns everyone gets to take between enemy attacks. That's the other massive gameplay improvement in 5 compared to 3, by the way. Rather than taking actual turns, you instead have a meter that fills naturally in real time, and the same is true for enemies, though their meters are hidden. The meter even fills while you're selecting actions with your party members, so you may want to navigate the menu quickly. Spells like Haste and Slow can alter the rate at which these meters fill, and it's really powerful to do so. Though this system was introduced in 4, I'm sticking more with the comparison to 3 and 5, and while I know it's considered dated by today's standards, I still really enjoy the active battle system. Regarding normal magic, there's a wide variety due to all of the jobs available. Most of them, outside of blue magic of course, are purchased at shops. You just waltz in, drop some cash, and now every member of your party will have access to that spell for the rest of the game whenever they have the appropriate skill equipped. I really appreciate not having to juggle spell slots or buy 4 copies of a spell to give to 4 different characters or anything like that. The primary exception to this, however, is summons. You do get access to purchasing a handful of summons for your summoner characters, but many of them are gained through story progress, such as Ifrit here, who does massive fire damage. The story of the game is very kooky with catastrophic event after catastrophic event, and the whole party just being like, well, moving on, I guess. All of their reactions are over the top initially, and then they just kind of stop caring. There's even little hidden stuff that you wouldn't see unless you go looking for it. For example, at the start of the game when you go to the pirate cave, Bartz leaves his trusty chocobo outside the cave because it's too dangerous in there. But then you just kinda sail away and forget about the chocobo. If you later go back to the cave, you discover that, to the surprise of absolutely no one except for Bartz, the chocobo didn't just sit there for weeks for you. Isn't that crazy how that works out? It went into the cave and then was hurt. But it's okay, the pirates found it and have a doctor treating this chocobo in a bed, covered by blankets. I'm inserting a picture of a chocobo in one of the 3D titles for the franchise so you can probably see the scale of what I'm talking about. They just put like a 500-pound bird in a bed and called it good. Ultimately, the story is actually kind of forgettable, which is by far the weakest link to this game, because I so love the combat mechanics and the job system. You go crystal to crystal, predictably fail to save each one, and then the world gets thrown into chaos as the big bad TM arrives, and then you go to another world to stop big bad TM there, because it turns out one of your party members is an alien. Okay, maybe less predictable, but that's also more or less the entire story, and there's not much else to it. Still, there's a lot more character to the characters than in Final Fantasy III, but the better stories is part of what keeps, let's see, looking at my rankings, counting, 13 more games in this franchise at a higher rank than Final Fantasy V. I do want to take another moment to mention that I did record this gameplay with the Pixel Remaster edition of the game, which continues to be the absolute best way to play Final Fantasies 1 through 6, and has so many quality of life features. If you really like the franchise, or find it at a time when it's all on sale, definitely get it. The orchestral versions of the music are great, the clarity and color of the pixels are fantastic, and the toggle to turn off random encounters when doing a lot of exploration and backtracking saves a lot of time and headache. The bestiary function is also great, and with this one I noticed for the first time that I can browse monsters by the map and even see if there's stuff I haven't encountered yet in different dungeons. My biggest wish with the bestiary, however, is that I wish I could gain experience from the fights I do, or at the very least job level progress. Because of all the grind fests of this franchise, Final Fantasy V's reasons to level a ton of jobs with a lot of characters, should you so wish to tinker with it all and experiment with party designs, is probably the absolute grindiest outside of the MMOs. It's a good thing it's fun. Join me tomorrow as I talk about the 222nd game on my list, where I'm made of meat.